This is very important. Sympathy versus empathy. So I'm specifically talking about the anxious and the dismissive, but some of this can also apply to the fearful avoidant. So let's get into it. The anxious, preoccupied individuals often tend to think that they have a wealth of empathy towards everybody, but they are mistaken. Most of the time, what they present is sympathy. So let me explain the difference. Sympathy is thinking about myself. So if I was in this situation, like my partner, like my friend, like my co-worker, like my boss, I would want somebody to show up in these ways. Therefore, I project that onto somebody else and I show up in those ways. Right? So that's not taking the other person into consideration. And that is the main difference. Sympathy is a projection of my wants and needs, thinking from my point of view and projecting that onto somebody else, giving that to somebody else. Meanwhile, empathy is looking at the other person from their point of view and thinking, what does that person want and need? So this causes a lot of conflict in relationships between the anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, or any of those attachment pairings. So let me give you a practical example. So say, for example, the partner of the anxious, preoccupied individual is going through a rough time. Maybe they got retrenched, or they just have lots of deadlines at work. Maybe they just run down, or they have trouble with their schoolwork or family life. And all they want is their own space, because avoidants regenerate when they take time out for themselves. That's when they feel like they can take off all of their masks, like there's nothing that is required of them. They don't need to show up in a specific way, because dismissive avoidants, fearful avoidants often live through this mask in the world where they're trying to project a certain image and give people what they need. Even dismissive avoidants tend to really people please. So they regenerate when they are alone and they can just switch off. So when they ask this from the anxious, preoccupied, and they say like, hey, you know what, I just really need to recharge. I need some time to myself. I'm going to spend my weekend at home. So the anxious, preoccupied individual will process that through their own perception and think, wow, my partner must be really going through a lot. When I go through a lot, I want somebody to check in on me, to maybe go over to the house and surprise me with dinner, or to call me. So they project that onto their partner, and unknowingly they break their partner's boundaries. And they don't understand why their partner gets angry with them. They think that I'm showing up so well, I'm doing so much, I'm going out of my way. A lot of the time, anxious, preoccupied individuals will neglect themselves, abandon themselves, their priorities, and look after their partner, and their partner might not want that. And this causes a lot of conflict and a lot of disconnect, and couples can actually break up because of this. So it's very important to try to understand, what is my partner going through from their perception? How do they process stress? So they process stress, avoidants process stress, like I said, through time alone, through the activities that they want to take. Okay, so let's move on to the dismissive avoidant. So they also lack empathy, and they lack empathy because it was never really demonstrated to them. Empathy is a learned skill. Because they don't empathize with themselves, they don't know how to empathize with their own emotions. Again, it wasn't shown to them. Then, of course, they will not do it to you, because the way that we are structured, we will tend to love people in the way that we love ourselves. We will speak to our closest people the way we speak to ourselves. So if they just suppress their own emotions, they will tend to suppress your emotions by turning your mind to something positive, not acknowledging the stress and tension that is going on in the other person, which most of us as human beings, when we share something, we want to be heard. We want somebody to acknowledge, like, wow, that is a difficult experience. And dismissive avoidants also believe that if I agree with my partner, that means that they're going to complain even more. But it's actually the opposite, especially when you're doing with an anxious person. The quicker you can find that place of connection and see them and hear them, the quicker you can both feel connected and soothed, right? Because when we deny our partner's reality, we create a bigger disconnection. This is how we can shift from surviving to thriving. My name is Patricia Mahotska, and I hope to see you in my coaching sessions or in my online course, which is still available. You can do it during your holidays and shift from an insecure attachment style to a secure attachment style. It's a 4-month course. It's amazing, and I highly recommend it. And I will see you in the next one. Big love. Oh, remember to subscribe and like and share.